Andy Lou, welcome to the Pacific Catch postgame show. We were recording this after the Warriors' victory over the Rockets, a back-to-back double for the Warriors. This is the first one of the season?
First time they felt like they've played 2 games in a row that has been good this season. So finally a good stretch for our Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, I actually, rainy day. I ordered some Pacific Catch. Delicious, just a perfect meal for a Saturday 5:30 rainy Warriors game. Obviously had to hit the noodle time menu. Went with the Hawaiian salmon bowl. Delicious. Also got some of the shrimp dumpling tots. Highly recommend. You see I'm smiling ear to ear. The mood. The vibes are immaculate in this Fandiari household right now.
Does your kid get to? He's not able to eat ramen yet, is he? He's not able to eat noodles, is he?
Honestly, he could, but well, I haven't. That's a fair question. He did not have it tonight, which is the important part.
Okay.
But I think he's ready to. I mean, it's so when you have a young child, it's like you don't want too many complex foods, but. We'll see. We'll see.
Maybe when the Warriors win next time, they don't shoot 55 threes in a quarter. maybe the kid gets some dumplings. Anyway, the Pacific Catch, post game show. Kind of an exhausting Warriors game, but I think I'm pretty happy regardless, Sam. So where do we begin today, man?
So I think there's a few things, but we should probably begin with Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins. 8 threes, 14 for 19, 36 points, his season high. Hilarious. Should have 9 threes, but he got, foot on the line, pulled the KD. And it's, Wiggs is, I think that there's so many positive things to say about him, but I just have to say it, If you told me when the Warriors acquired him, he would become a good player for the Warriors, I'd be like, I could see it. I could see them unlocking something. If you told me Wiggins would turn into like a 45% on volume, just knock down borderline Klay Thompson shooter, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. And that's kind of how he feels. And it's not just this season. It's like last year. The shooting is so confident.
It is incredible what he's transformed into as a Golden State Warrior. The Klay Thompson comp makes sense because I tweet. He to me feels like at this point actually Klay Thompson. He is who Klay Thompson was in 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. At this level that he's playing at right now. He's a volume 3-point shooter at a 40% plus clip. He's defending the quick guards. It's not like Klay. He's not doing like crazy splash plays, but he's doing it correctly to the scouting report. And he's a guy that
the efficiency,
perfect second option to Klay, just consistent, which is kind of what Klay was back then. Now it's a little bit different with him and Poole, but yeah, man, Wiggins is just that guy night in, night out, and you just throw him out there and you just sometimes forget about what he brings to the table because he just does it so. We do this with Steph. It's just that Steph is so good that we're just like, well, the splash plays are there. But sometimes Wiggins, you're just like 35 minutes of just really freaking good basketball. And tonight, it was way more than that, right? Probably maybe even the best player on the court, 36 points, just plus 34, which is insane. Is he an all-star? I know some people ask that. I don't really care. But he definitely has to be again if he was last season, no matter how, because he's better than he was last season. I'll tell you that right now. He is better than he was last season.
Yeah, he's what he was last season with 10 times more confidence and probably a little more skill improvement. So, yes, a bunch better than he was last year. I like you saying, I don't care if he's an all-star because I'm with you. It's not that important. What matters to me is I know he is a high impact player who matters when games matter. That was something I did not know last December. Excuse me. Last December 3rd, I was like, he's playing well, but can I trust Wiggins when it comes to playoff time? I wasn't there yet, personally. Right now, 100% there. We saw him do it last playoffs. He basically proved every critic wrong and just kind of shut every doubt off. And he's just built upon it. Like he's probably the second most consistent player on his team. Just all around awesome play on the league.
I don't. He's probably one of the best two-way wings in the league right now. I just think he's like how Looney is just an elite role player.
Yeah.
I think and I think people don't care about that because in the regular season he doesn't get any points. He doesn't really get any flashy stats. He just doesn't look like he's good at basketball. But when it comes into the postseason, he's that guy. He could play 25 minutes easy. I think same with Wiggins. I don't know how flashy he is either. It's not like he's dunking the ball left and right? Even though he's super athletic, he's not. He doesn't dribble the ball. He doesn't do anything.
You get that highlight like once every 2 to 3 weeks.
He's not that guy. He had a good time against Minnesota, but he always does it against Minnesota. But I think at this point, you're talking about two of the best. They're not the same, but you're talking about two of the best elite for Wiggins two-way wings, especially in the postseason, and then Looney as just like a pure role player big man. I just don't think you've got anything better than those guys, which is why the Warriors have the best net rating with the starting lineup with Steph, Looney, Wiggins, and then Draymond. And it feels like at this point, Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson are interchangeable. It doesn't matter. You throw one in, they're going to crush you.
I'll go a step farther. I don't think the net rating would change if they put Moses Moody in there right now. Like, and I'm not saying
because he had a good game tonight. Maybe not.
I'm not saying he can do what Poole and Klay can do because he's not at that level yet. But like the machine is so built around Steph, Draymond, Wiggins, Looney. It's like just put in a dude who can shoot and move off ball, and it's gonna work when they have him at the 2-guard position a little bit there.
Yep. I agree.
I think it's worth calling out that they are taking a lot of threes. I saw a one Andy Liu, and I'm trying to put this on the screen right now, which is why I'm stalling.
Yep.
I saw a one Andy Liu tweet this during the game a few times that the Warriors are taking too many threes. Just to put the numbers up here, they took 52 threes tonight. They made 25 of them, which is always going to work. Last night, and we're doing the double back-to-back recap here. Last night they took 50. So they're back-to-back games to taking 53s. And I saw you mention this a few times during the game. So I want to just, pass the mic over to you, opine on this. Do you think they're shooting too many threes?
So you can never say a team shoots too many if they have Steph and Poole and especially Wiggins tonight and Klay. I do think there are moments that this team does need to understand you don't need to shoot a three. You probably shouldn't. And I think it's two separate occasions. Number one, it's those times when Steph is on the floor. You don't have to play the way you play when Steph is on the floor. Anthony Lamb standing out there in the corner. Jonathan Kuminga's not cutting. Moses Moody is kind of floating around. And then you've got Draymond and Poole doing like a two-man game, running around, and nothing happens, right? And nobody's cutting. Nobody's even trying to shoot a mid-range jumper. Don't play the way that Steph plays when Steph isn't on the floor, because that's not what's going to make you successful. So that's one thing that I tweeted that essentially during that run. And then the second thing is they're shooting a lot of threes in crunch time, which we saw in Dallas. And I kind of felt like that was a good loss. I felt like it was fine. But I think this team tends to just shoot way too many when the game is on the line. Not many teams in the NBA have great rim protection guys. I mean, there's probably only a handful of the elite defenses have that. And I think the Warriors, they just get content to do that because that's the style of play throughout the first 40-plus minutes. They end up doing it the last 5. So it's frustrating, but Steph comes back in and he makes 2 threes and the game is over, right? So I just think it's hard. It's hard without veterans to switch up a style, to go from shooting 15 threes with Steph and Wiggs and Poole. All of a sudden you've got Kuminga, Moody, and Lamb, and all of a sudden you're like, well, let's play a completely different style. I don't know how you can do that, but they probably should stop doing that.
So do you think it's an issue of them? Do you think it's an issue of discipline or general ball movement that's leading to them here?
I do think it's mostly the former, right? I think that's because they have too many guys that they're like, for example, it's Poole, Moody, and Kuminga, which is what I keep pointing out. Those guys are young, especially Kuminga and Moody, and they don't play basketball. They don't. Each game they play like 10 minutes max. So it's hard to tell them, you should do what Andre Iguodala used to do, which is
Rein it back.
rein it back, not turn the ball over, and just kind of make it the game super boring, but maybe don't go minus 10 in those minutes and don't turn the ball over and don't take stupid shots. But it's hard to expect those guys to do that because I'm trying to figure out if Kuminga can just play basketball like a normal human being. So it's hard to expect him to do what Iguodala and Sean Livingston did. So I think it's just kind of unfair. But then you've got guys out there like not knowing what to do, and they're just playing the way that the starters play, and that's not going to work.
That's an interesting point because it's like, and Draymond made this point earlier in the season. We're used to the second unit coming in and kind of slowing the game down and trying to just essentially buy 5 to 7 minutes, like just basically keep the game the same level, buy some time. Right now, the second unit's trying to go in there and show what they can do in many ways. It's like a lot of like, this is my time to shine. And it leads to like this wide variance. Like sometimes it works, sometimes it's minus 10, like you said. Yeah, I mean, so what would you do to add to the second unit to settle it down? Because Steve went with the Draymond, like Draymond be the adult in the room and get everyone in their place move, but he can't play 48 minutes.
He can't, and I think two things. I think the Draymond, this was kind of one game, maybe isolated to a couple games, but I think you may have to go without the Lamb minutes. I think it's expiring.
Really?
The time is expiring for me because I think there are players that are starting to understand the game more. I think Moses Moody tonight was one. It's hard to play Lamb and that you've got Kuminga and Moody next to him, or you take Moody out and put JaMychal Green next to him. Dude, that's 3 guys that can't dribble. And all of them can't really shoot either. Like, I know Lamb's shooting 40%, but it's not a real 40% to me. And so all of a sudden, you got to pick. You've got to pick some guys. You can't just have 3 stiffs out there that can't. If they're not going to cut, which they aren't, then you've got to at least have some guys that can at least move the ball, which is why it brings me to what I thought was hilarious last night, since we're doing a double recap. Did you see Steve Kerr's reaction with a friend of the show, Alex Caruso, after the game? They just need guys that know how to play basketball, man. They just need guys like that on the bench, which is what has always made them successful. Always, always, always. And if you think Moses Moody going to get there, then you got to let him play. You got to just let him play then, Steve Kerr, because what you're doing right now with if you're going to throw Moody and Kuminga and Lamb out there, it's not going to happen. Or JaMychal Green, it's not going to happen. None of those guys move, and none of those guys can dribble.
Is Alex Caruso like the most meant to be a Warrior player of all time? Like, forget the reality of it because it's unlikely they can pull off a trade for him. I mean, maybe they could, but who knows?
Maybe. I don't know.
Is he not just the most Steve Kerr player of all time? Just a phenomenal defender, pass first player, not interested in shooting the ball. Could just wants to be the adult on the floor with Poole, with Moody, with whoever it may be.
It is. It's perfect. And again, won a championship on that Lakers team. You know, we talk about how fake that one is. Still won it.
That's not a real shit.
But you remember how great, like, that team had a ton of great role players, though, huh? Like, you look back on that Lakers team and you're
yeah, I mean, can you believe they traded all those guys for Russell Westbrook? Like,
Kuzma, KCP, and Alex Caruso. Those are 3 guys that, tell you what, if the Warriors had one of those guys right now, I don't know about Kuzma. He's always an interesting guy, but he's having a good season. But those 3 guys, you talk about 3 great role players. Those would be perfect on the Warriors right now. I think they're missing. We always talk about they're missing that one guy and whether it should be a big or whether it should be a wing. I don't know. Maybe it's one of them. I think either of them works. I think just maybe a veteran that just knows how to play basketball. That's it. That's kind of what the Warriors just need, is so that things just don't get crazy. Because I'm sitting there watching the start of the fourth quarter tonight and the start of the fourth quarter last night, and I'm just like, man, this is ugly stuff. I still don't know if this team is right now. Obviously, if you cut this rotation down to 7-8 people in the playoffs, but right now for them to get through the regular season, like I don't know how confident I am. And we saw Steph tweak his ankle tonight.
I was going to say that pulls up to the next point, which is both Poole and Steph. Obviously, Steph the tweak their ankles, and the Warriors have been lucky so far this season. They haven't had to deal with anything, and they're 13-11. and they've been able to kind of get away with it a little bit just by virtue of the NBA schedule. But like at some point, someone's going to tweak something, and they can withstand Clay tweaking something because they got decent depth at his position. But if it's Steph or Draymond, I don't think they have enough players on this team to get by with those guys missing extended period of time the way they did last year. That's something to consider too.
Yeah, no chance. I was literally looking at the Steph tweak, and I was like, all right, he misses 3 games, they lose all 3. I mean, how could it or Draymond, like you're saying? So that's gonna happen, I think, regardless. It's just how the NBA goes. You can't go unscathed. But I mean, it's something to think about. Jordan, at least they look fine. Looks like Jordan Poole is fine. Looks like Steph is fine. So they've got one on Indiana on Monday, which they should play.
Let's talk a little Moses Moody, and then let's see where we can go from there. We have a quote from friend of the show, Steve Kerr, which I'm going to throw in the chat. And once again, I'm being slow with it, so we're going to delay this.
Moses Moody was interesting tonight, though.
He looked like he hadn't played regularly, and he made all those mistakes. From friend of the show, Shayna Rubin, Steve Kerr on Moses Moody's minutes. Moses is someone I believe in as a human being.
What the fuck does that even mean?
It takes a lot of character to come off the bench and shake all the cobwebs off and hit those big shots and play important minutes. First off, Steve, just with I believe in him as a human being.
What is that?
Modern living is unfair. Like, what?
The guy reads a lot of books. That's for sure.
Yeah,
he reads a lot.
But he's right though. Like on the hard, it's hard to play like that.
You know what I think Steve Kerr thinks of Moses Moody as? I think he sees a lot of himself in Moses Moody. I think he sees like the end of the bench veteran that can just come in and be ready to play, like Damian Lee and JTA and Bielitsa and those guys. Where I think Steve Kerr's just like, who's a guy that I can just sit on a bench and just, if I need him to come in and just make a play, I could be relatively confident that could happen, is Moses Moody. Like, I think that's how he feels about Moses Moody. I don't think you can feel that confident about a Kuminga. I think Kuminga, you kind of need to have him consistently play 15 minutes,
right?
To where he's gonna be always focused. And Steve Kerr had a quote about the team lacking focus, which I agree. I think Moses Moody is always going to be somewhat consistent, but that also begs the question: if he's always going to be somewhat consistent, why doesn't he play more? Right? But then maybe you argue that his position, his minutes would come at the expense of someone like Dante DiVincenzo, who, by the way, was not great tonight in the second half. So maybe he takes some of those minutes, but you've got a bit of a crunch there because he's not. You can't really play him in Anthony Lamb's minutes, which.
No, they play different. I mean, like,
as
frustrating, right? as Lamb Smith can be, like, he plays a 4-5, Moody's a 2-3.
And then you'd have to shift Kuminga. So do you think Kuminga play the 4, right? Like, now you're kind of moving that around. So I think maybe you try to make those minutes happen, because I think you do have to figure out a way for Moses to get Moody to play basketball, because I don't know if he's too good, but the same story with Wiseman. You gotta figure something. What, you're just not gonna play?
Oh,
him?
I think he's too good. It reminds me more of Jordan Poole, where I'm not sure how good he is, but I know he can play to some degree. Like you said, 4 for 5 tonight, 11 points in 17 minutes. He understands where to be. Like, does he make young player mistakes? Yes, but like, I would say he's pretty ready to play for this Warriors team. He understands how to move off ball. He'll swing the ball most of the time. And he can really shoot it in general. Like, I think that's the most important thing. He can really shoot it at an NBA level right now.
Yep.
And I understand the numbers crunch. You have Steph and Clay, duh. And then you have Jordan Poole. And then you got Dante, who's kind of different, but someone you want to throw in there as well. All of a sudden, you're like, where's minutes coming from, right? Because they also got Wiggins on the wing and maybe Kuminga. I understand all that, but you got to do a better job getting him into it, because he can play, and for the betterment of the team, he's got to be a little bit of a rotation piece.
I agree. Yeah, they have to find a way. You can't just. If it's downshifting Kuminga, if it's getting a big so that they can play another big, because it's not like JaMychal Green's been great, right? So
no.
You're right. They've got to figure out a way. Even if it's going small, then I don't know, but you're right. I don't know. Jordan Poole was becoming pretty clear when they had sent him down to the G League, and it was like, hey, like this guy, like I don't know if Moses Moody is like that, but I still do believe in him. But yeah, they need him to figure out, because even with Dante DiVincenzo, who played well, I think yesterday, I don't think he's someone that's like, yeah, he's a set and forget 25 minutes a game. I don't think he's that guy either, because you watch him shoot the ball, and I feel like he should be a better shooter than he is. He's not. He missed all his threes
Very
tonight.
confident shooter.
He takes a lot of weird threes too. It's not like they're corner threes. It's not like they're really open threes. Sometimes it's like yeah. Sometimes he comes off the screen and it's above the break, 2 feet behind the arc, and he just pulls it. You're just like, holy fuck, dude! Like you're not Clay, you're not Wiggins, right? So it's like, what are we doing here? So, but his defense is good and his passing is fine. So he's a guy that should be playing, but maybe those are some minutes that Moses Moody can steal, because it sounds like, unlike Kuminga, he just come in there and he's ready to ball. Like he doesn't need 5 minutes to warm up. He's ready to go. So someone, they're going to be on the road. They're going to be on the road, and they're going to get guys that are going to be resting, right? So they're going to have to figure some stuff out here.
My last thought on it is, we all agree they have players, and too many players for the 1 through 3 and not enough players for the 4 and 5. So like, if you can't figure out how to downshift to make it work, this is the most obvious trade thing of all time. It's like, hey, we have too many guys who play the 2 and the 3 and not enough guys who play the 4 and the 5. It's not that complicated, Now what they can do to make it, that can be complicated, but like, it's just one of those things where it's like, if Moody was 2 inches taller, a lot of their rotation issues would probably be solved, because you just play him at the 4, right?
Yeah.
And it is what it is, but it's like, it's clear he's too good to play or to not play, and they're just trying to figure it out, and it is what it is.
I'm looking at I mean, part of it too is like Clay's out tonight, so that certainly helps them. But
that's why I had minutes tonight.
Yeah, that's literally the reason. That's the only reason why. But JaMychal Green 10 minutes, and then Anthony Lamb 17. Can you move those minutes together and give some to Moody, right? But then if Clay comes back, he's probably not going to play. But Dante DiVincenzo played 20 tonight, so I don't know. It's weird where they kind of have a minutes crunch, but you can't really tell me that guys like Green, DiVincenzo, Kuminga should be playing set minutes. Like, you can't tell me
so
that.
It's a position crunch, right?
Yeah.
It's like they have too many 2 guards and not enough like power forwards or whatever you want to call it, right?
It's like watching the Giants last year. You always make the comparison. I mean, it's just they've got a lot of platoon guys, but none of them are actually that good. So they're trying to make it right? But the offense is still pretty mediocre. But you're right. I do think, I think Steve knows that he's gonna have to play. I think it's pretty clear, man. It's pretty clear.
And I understand it. It's like, he doesn't think he's a 4. He's like, Lamb can play the 4. So that's why he goes that way. Like, I'm sure he'd rather play Moses, but like, he's not a power forward. It is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to some goonery. We got a couple super chats here.
Yeah.
Come on, man. It doesn't look that bad.
Not a fan of the fade? Not a fan of the fade?
I always get a fade. I just usually wear a hat. This is why I'm gonna wear a hat from now on, because you
guys are gonna make my guy self-conscious. Yeah, I, on the other hand, never get self-conscious. So we keep it moving.
It's cool. It's cool. All right, let's see. Is Big Jim gone? If you're paying Dre this summer, makes no sense for Big Jim to still be here and not be playing. Is he playing this year? Man. Too early to
Big Jim. He's not playing this year. Stop. Too early. Don't give me the too early. Get out of here. He's not playing this year.
Yeah, I mean, can we talk about Draymond real quick though?
Yeah, let's talk about Draymond. It's more fun.
I'm trying to think of the polite way to put this, but if you do not understand how talented he is, I just can't talk basketball with you anymore. Honestly, like, people seem to think talent has to do with size and athleticism. Meanwhile, Draymond Green is the key to everything the Warriors do outside of Steph Curry. He's been playing phenomenal basketball in every facet of the game. This is the most I've seen him attack the basket. It's the best I've seen him shoot the ball in years. And the defense and the general leadership on both ends of the floor, as good as they always are. Honestly, I wonder if he needs to punch more teammates. Like, that's where I'm at. Like, I threw up a poll. Would you be willing to allow Draymond to punch Steph in the face if it meant 40+% from the 3-point line? I think Steph can handle it. I think he's tough.
I think Draymond is in Russia somewhere in a prison if he ends up punching Steph. Draymond looked exhausted tonight in the second half of the back end of the back-to-back, but dude, he looks incredible. Last night was incredible. Hits the huge three at the end. Defensively, I will say one thing about Draymond defensively. He's slower on the perimeter, guys. I don't know how good he is switching out on defenders anymore, but he is still an all-time help defender. Nobody better. Never seen anybody better. He makes routine help defensive plays that if I saw any other player make, I would jump out of my seat. I mean, you know me, I love defense. If I see a player that does that, I'd be like, yo, like, you know, that guy is a max contract. And you see Draymond do that at least 5 times a night. He's over here saving.
He knows what you're doing. He knows what you're doing before you do it.
Yep.
He spoils you because he blows up what they do before it happens every time. And I will say this, Draymond's one of those guys that most people don't appreciate until he's not there. And then it's like a layup line on your team, and you're like, why aren't they defending? It's like, I don't know, because they don't have the dude who's fucking spoon-feeding them everything at all times, you know?
Well, we watched it early this season. Yeah. You know what I mean? We watched them. We literally watched them give up buckets left and right. Now, I do think the Warriors, they are still struggling. I don't even think there's a league average defense right now still. And some of that is because of that. So, because of the early season struggle. So, I do think rough kind of start to the season has made their defense look bad. It has gotten better, but I do think there are still some holes defensively with this team. By the way, shout out to Karima for pushing out the keep it up sticker there. I also saw a chat that from William Mitchell, the Warriors are the 16th now. So there you go. The Warriors have breaking news on the show right now. The Warriors are out of the play-in game.
No longer a play-in team.
Ooh.
It's over. We're back. Parade on Monday.
You imagine if the Warriors didn't fuck around the first 7 games of the season. You know, they'd probably be chasing the Suns right now for the best record in the NBA. They might not be 18-2.
That's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
Which, you know, was a mistake on my part, but it's like, you know, it's kind of funny watching this whole thing play out, because it's like, as bad as their start was, it doesn't really seem like it matters. Like they go 4 of the next 5, they might be the 2 seed, you know?
Yeah. Tough road trip coming up, but I mean, just imagine if they go, you know, they have won 3 more games to start the season. Instead of 3-7, they're 6-4, like a normal team, right? And all of a sudden now they're a 16 and let me do the math, 16-8 team. It's a first place team, the Warriors right now, if they had just started the season normally. So, but again, I think part of that is urgency. They are playing with urgency right now. You can see them start these games. I think Steve Kerr talked about that was the best quarter that he's seen this team play this season. And then they kind of lose it and let it go to shit, because I think they're like, well, we're up 25. We can kind of relax. And I think in today's modern NBA, you kind of can't do that. All teams can make bullshit threes, or they could just kind of get back in the game quickly. But, you know, this team, when they're focused, is elite, man, as we expected.
All right, let's cut this one short tonight. I just have one last topic before we get out of here.
All right.
The Warriors play the Pacers on Monday. Then they go to Utah on Wednesday. And then they're back for the Boston Celtics on Saturday before they hit the long road trip, the Milwaukee, Indiana, Philadelphia, New York road trip. I'm wondering, what do you think they do this next week for these 3 games? We got the Pacers at home. I'm assuming Steph and Poole are cool, even though they both
Steve said they're all right. Steve said they're okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just get a word anytime I see it. It's shocking. Doesn't matter how many years we've seen it with Steph. Every time the limp comes, I'm like, oh, yeah,
fuck me.
Yeah. Then Indiana, Indy's tough. Or sorry, Utah. Utah's always tough at home.
In Utah.
They're always tough at home, even if they're slumping now. They're finally coming down to earth. Newsflash, not the best team in the league. And then the Warriors come home with a long rest before the Celtics. What do you want to see this week? What do you want to see?
Record wise, they got to win two of those. They have to.
Mhm.
I think, they have to. Indiana's a must win. I think Utah's kind of falling apart. They lost tonight again to Portland. If I have that correct, I think I just saw them lose to Portland. I think they're a team that's ready to fall apart. And we might see them selling by the trade deadline. So I think that's a win that's a win that they should make. And then I think the Boston game is that's the one that's the barometer. So that's actually the game I care about the most, like everyone else. But that to me, why I care about it is one, they're rested, like you said, they're coming into that game. First Saturday night national TV game of the season. Boston's rolling. They got the league's best offense. They've got Jason Tatum, the MVP. They've got the best defense. NBA Finals match. And honestly, the Warriors haven't played a good team in weeks. Right, part of this run that they've made is kind of going through.
I mean, how many good teams are there in the league by your standards?
Sure, right.
There's just two, right? There's only two we care about, right?
Yeah, I mean they've played Phoenix, right? So they lost to them, but that was before they made their run.
Yeah,
right? But I'm just saying, yeah, right. I'm saying regular season wise, they haven't played Denver, New Orleans, they benched their guys. So they haven't played Memphis, so they haven't really played these quote unquote, maybe really good teams in the NBA so far in the Western Conference. Boston is that team. So they go into that game. They should be, maybe 15-11 going into that game. How good are the Warriors right now? Because yes, if it's a game 7 on Saturday, I'm taking the Warriors because they're going to do a 7-man rotation, but they're not. I want to know how they stack up against Boston because Boston's playing better than they did last season. They're a better team, and the Warriors are not a better team than they are than last season right now.
How many teams in the NBA? Be honest with me. How many teams in the NBA do you think can beat the Warriors in a 7-game series?
Right now?
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, like no roster changes. Like you just
yeah. With the way the teams are playing right now,
and just to be clear, I'm saying relative health, no weird circumstances. Like the Warriors are rolling in a healthy roster. How many teams are you concerned about?
2. There's 2.
Who are those 2 teams?
They're the 2 teams that have to play each other. So it's really only one. So it's Boston and Milwaukee. And maybe the Lakers. Lakers look good. Boston, Milwaukee.
You just sound like you're heading down to LA and you're just trying to get some goodwill.
I am heading down to LA next week. Disney.
Yeah, I know you. I know you. You're going to K-Town. You just don't want to be hated. No, I agree with you. So my broad point, my question for you is, I consider Boston and Milwaukee litmus tests for the Warriors team.
Yeah.
I think they can beat them. I'm not convinced that the roster, the way it is right now, can beat them. And I want to watch that game so I can have an appropriate kind of test for where they're at. Like, hey man, if I watch that game and I'm like, man, they just need another big. Someone needs to develop or something like that. That's cool. But at least I know it. So I just want to watch it. That's my thing that I want to see.
I want to see how they defend those guys too, right? Like if Steph goes for 45 and they win, it's like, well, I've seen this before. I mean, I've seen this in the NBA Finals. This was Steph's greatest game no less than 5 months ago. But you're right. What if they lock up Jaylen Brown, but they just can't guard Jason Tatum? And it's like, well, the losses of GP2 and Otto Porter and just kind of the relative IQ on the team. Now all of a sudden they can't guard the Celtics because they don't have smart enough defenders. Maybe that's the issue. And I kind of think that's the issue. But I think this year's offense is better. I think they're going to have a easier time scoring against Boston, but I don't know how they can guard them. So yeah, to your point,
48 minutes of Loon. That's kind of the answer right now.
Solves a lot. Robert Williams isn't going to play, right? He hasn't played all season. So, that's one of the guys that I think the Warriors had some issues with, even though he was kind of playing on one leg at that point. But, man, that's going to be a great game. The league does have 2 great teams right now, and I think the Warriors are right there with them. They're probably the third, like a little bit, maybe a tier below. I would say right now, of course, like just the way they're playing right now. I'd say a tier below, but, next Saturday tells us a lot. I'm going to miss that game. I realize I'm going to miss that game. I will actually be in Disneyland. It just hit me. So I will watch it on my phone. I'll watch it on my phone.
All right. We'll get out of here. Appreciate it, everyone. We'll be back after the Pacer game. Night.